Are you guys ready up there? All right. All right, quiet on the set.
Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Movies. My name is Blake. I'm not your typical host here, but I'm guiding us through these. What is it? The Ides? No, it's the Ides of March. So we'll call it the quarantine of April. And as you can hear, I'm joined by two lovely co-hosts here and hosts as well. Patrick. You're the editor over at Adventures in Movies, Adventures in Poor Taste. So what's up with you, man?
Not much. Just ready to talk, and I'm ready to flow like the blood on a murder scene.
Nice. Nice. And recent recipient of Big Daddy Trump Bucks, co-host Danny. Danny, what's up, man?
Just call me Mr. Trump Bucks.
That's Mr. Trump Bucks to you.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you gonna do with your Trump Bucks, man? I actually want to know because I actually got mine today too. I'm just gonna save mine.
Okay, say it. Yeah, say it. Mine's so fucking boring.
Oh man, I want to hear frivolous stories. I want to hear people be like, "Yeah, I wouldn't bought a TV that I'm gonna buy."
Well, someone told me at the unemployment office. Someone told me that they got their Trump bucks, and they used it to buy a 375 block of knives from Germany. I was like, that's awesome.
But so 300 knives? It's just like a big lot.
No,
of them?
You know those blocks of knife where it has like the big steak knife in it, and then the bread knife, and then like the six little utensil knives, and then and then the little one for finely cutting jalapenos and stuff like that. Oh, they got. They spent $375 on that. If and when I finally get my Trump bucks, they will be going back to the income tax I have to pay, so it'll be going right back.
You gotta
right
keep
back where it came from.
Moving in a circle, man. You got to keep that money moving in a circle. That's the whole idea, right?
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, I think so. That's what It's Always Sunny taught me. Patty bucks. So actually, pretty big week worth of news, dudes, and we'll start with Dune news.
Oh boy, huh? Those are some sexy ass fucking pictures. Like, I need what's the whole thing? It gave me the vapors.
Oh yeah,
it is super sexy, super pretty pictures, and I'm excited.
They're the perfect pictures for the COVID era because they look like they were shot in a COVID studio. It's just nothing but dirt, sky, and Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually looks surprisingly similar to some of the stuff I remember from the Sci-Fi Channel, actually. But I've mentioned it numerous times. I'm a huge Dune fan, and I actually think that as far as what I've always pictured in the books, they did a pretty good job. I thought in a large part, David Lynch did a pretty decent job too. And there's some similarities there with the suits they're wearing and stuff. It also reminded me of some of the shots, and I guess it's just because I'm starved for anticipating cool stuff. I used to be on the Game of Thrones Reddit all the time looking for new photos from the upcoming season and stuff. It reminded me of that. Real high quality stuff. Looked really great. I don't know, did you guys think it kind of fell in line with what you thought it was going to look like, or no?
I thought it was really cool, but going back to what you were saying, it was really cool to see new movie news that wasn't about a delay. Right. It was really awesome to see these upcoming, and who knows when the movie will come out. I mean, that's the type of movie that's just made to be delayed multiple times before it comes out, it seems like. Right. But so I'm anticipating it in 2024. But it was great to hear that. And yeah, the pictures they did look really cool. And I've never read this series. I've seen the David Lynch movie. I've never seen the the sci-fi series, but I was excited to see this one just because the cast itself is
Oh,
awesome.
incredible cast. Yeah, I think what's his face? Jason Momoa compared his role to like he thinks it's like as epic as like Han Solo or something. I did hear though, I don't know if you guys heard this, that they're planning now on splitting it into 2 movies.
What?
Yes.
Well, that's the way of it. That's ever since I blame it on the last Twilight movie. They split that into two.
Harry Potter, Twilight, if you
Yeah.
stuff, get out of here, man. I guess Dune is kind of the original teen stuff in a way.
And if we've learned anything from this COVID thing, it's like you don't have time to split stuff up. You got to get it all out at once because who knows if we'll have a chance to see that next part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not. Yeah. Come on. We might all actually need those suits by the end of this deal. So Doctor Strange and the methods of fucking mayhem or what?
The multitude of motherfucking madness.
Multiverse.
Yeah, Sam Raimi as he's officially. I didn't see this, so you guys are gonna have to let me in. I love it, but Sam Raimi is officially signed on. What's the deal?
He is, and we did it again. Last week we spoke of Sam Raimi and his superhero past, actually. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, shortly after it was announced that officially Sam Raimi will be directing the next Doctor Strange movie. So you're welcome, fans of the MCU. We're glad to do our part. And yeah, I'm very excited to see where Sam Raimi takes this movie.
Yeah, and so in the first Spider-Man movie, his first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, there's mentions of Doctor Strange, and I think it was already in the works that he wanted to do like a multiverse. I'm also speculating, but
So take everything you just said with a huge grain of salt.
Save that shit for the comics podcast.
That's very true. Guys, if the comic podcast wants to have me over, bring me on. I have a lot of crazy ideas. But
He'll say whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, this is true.
I have no filter.
As long as it doesn't have a B or an N, he'll get it out.
Or a 7.
So we're all excited about that. Let's see here. Mandalorian. So I don't know anything about this. They're doing a documentary based on the series?
Yeah, already, because it's we need to know. We need a documentary about this. Actually, Daddy might know more about this because I just saw for Star Wars Day. There's going to be I think the finale for Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Mandalorian doc, and I actually thought the same thing. I was like, wait, a documentary about? Is it about a Mandalorian, like the race, or is it about the series already? Because didn't that just come out like 2 weeks ago? But so I think, but I did see a picture. And it did look like it was from the series. So I defer to Danny. I believe it's about the series, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, this is one of the things that, because I've been having a lot of weird computer troubles, and I haven't really been on my phone just because everything is like kind of like depressing. So this is like fucking like heavy ass news. Like for the first couple of days, I was just sending you and Blake and Pat pictures of Dune, and that's how it pretty much was. I was like, oh, this is like great. And then I saw the Sam Raimi thing, and then like jumping onto the script, I see this Mandalorian documentary, and I'm like, well, that's weird. I mean, we just got to show maybe because there's no other Star Wars thing happening. This might be the like.
I thought there was a cartoon
thing
coming out.
Well, the
Or
cartoon's
whatever.
out right now, but it's already going to be over too. So there is like no new Star Wars content happening. So they're like, let's fucking throw out a documentary. Like let's give more money to John
Yeah, I was
Favreau
gonna
or
say,
whatever.
And Lord knows we need more Star Wars content. There's just not enough of it. We
Yeah, I
need
know.
more.
I think there was like a new book that got like announced too. So like the Disney thing is like, here's everything that you want for Star Wars, and nobody could go either way, so they're just gonna blur it out. I mean, not blur it out, just like vomit it out, I guess.
I hope this. I hope if there's one good thing that comes from all this, social distancing and no one can go to work and stuff, is that there's far less Star Wars coming in the future. It's just a huge lack of it for once in a while. It was crazy. It was like there was no Star Wars forever, and we were all just begging for it. And now we've been
It's the whole be careful what you wish for thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess a lot of people are wishing for movie theaters to reopen. You got some news on Cinemark?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And spoiler, I love going to the movies. I haven't I haven't seen a movie in a theater since The Invisible Man. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I think it was the end of February. Whatever the opening weekend for that movie was, that's the last movie I saw in theaters. And I saw the news that Cinemark is going to be opening tentatively in July. They're going to start by showing popular classic films from their library just to kind of get people used to coming. They're going to have limited seating also. They also discussed possibly only being open on certain days. So they're going to do everything that they can to kind of ease people back into it, because at first, I mean, let's face it, most people are not going to want to go to a building with a bunch. Some people are going to just going to be so excited to go out because they're stir crazy, but other people are just, I mean, they'll never want to be in a building with more than 10 people again.
Totally.
They're going to kind of ease into it. And then I think the first major movie that they want, and this is what they're saying, they're going to take it, they're saying Christopher Nolan's Tenet. That's a pretty cool movie to start off with.
To come back with,
That would be cool.
Yeah, and they figure, and again, everything's, hour by hour pretty much, but they figure in 3 to 4 months they'll have it as back to normal as they can have it. I get, that's one of those we'll see what happens things. So
interesting. It's like I guess I always talk shit about those like boutique, real nice fancy theaters like Alamo and stuff. But in actuality, those are perfect. It's the assigned seating. You can block off entire, seating sections easily, and people would feel pretty comfortable. I would, I think I would feel pretty comfortable. Once things chill out a little bit to go, sit, fucking 12 feet away from a motherfucker. I want to sit 12 feet away from a motherfucker anyway. So, and actually,
that's
you know what I
true.
mean?
This works for you.
Yeah, this is gold for me, baby. But so I actually did see that drive-in theaters, they're actually banting about the idea of kind of doing some drive-in theater stuff. I know AMC was in big trouble, and I think they've been thinking about it. I think Cinemark's been thinking about it as well. But yeah.
So I have this. Okay, so I do art markets in El Paso area, and there's this novelty Italian restaurant that has they're themed restaurants essentially, and they are opening up a quote unquote drive-in theater. They essentially been buying junkyard cars and cutting them up in half to have the back seat, and they're putting up like the screen and everything. They've been doing this for maybe the last 6 months.
Where is this?
5 Points here in El Paso.
Oh.
And you could see it off of I-10, but I've been hearing that the drive-in theaters are we talk about like this whole weird nostalgia wave, but drive-in theaters are fucking perfect right now. I know I'm gonna talk about it later, but like Trolls made $400,000, at drive-in theaters when there is no fucking movie theaters, and now this is becoming an option for a lot of people, and I think this is a great way to introduce this thing. Have shitty speakers for your.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I know, but that's how I remember it.
Yeah.
But having like this reintroduction of the drive-in, like Alamo Drafthouse, quote unquote, does it. These drive-in theater experiences, and I know here at the Plaza they do the same thing. Why not? Why not bring these things back? It's fucking perfect, especially for this new world that we're living in. And it's so fucking stupid to say, but this is all new for us. It's perfect, I think.
Next Friday on Shudder, the second season of The Last Drive-In is coming back, and like Joe Bob says, the drive-in will never die. So,
goddamn right. Unlike Brian Dennehy.
Unlike, it's I don't know if it's because I'm older or I don't know, maybe I'm a little touch of senility or something, but I could have sworn he was already dead.
Oh no, you're having that like Mandela effect where you think you heard that he died and you're convinced of it. It's like the Berenstain Bears. It's that thing. You just thought
Bob Dylan too.
Yeah.
I always think Bob Dylan's dead too.
No, he just made a 17-minute song about John F. Kennedy,
which proved that he's been dead inside since 1979. So.
So who do you think is gonna? Do you think Keith Richards or Bob Dylan will live longer?
Richards.
Bob. No,
Really?
Bob.
Oh,
I think Bob. I think Bob Dylan's in good shape. I don't know.
Well, Keith Richards hasn't been in good shape since I don't know 1952 or something. He's been chugging along. So.
No, but if you had to give me like a death pool, like every year, I would take Keith Richards every year, even though he just defies the odds. Like I would, it's gonna happen. It's fucking gonna happen.
You know what? I think Keith Richards outlives Bob Dylan.
Really? Shit. All right.
I think so too. Yeah. 2020 death pool right here. I know we're
So
talking about.
We've already killed enough people, guys. We've already killed enough on this podcast.
I know. I was gonna say we're talking about them both. So next week, I'm kind of already worried about what we're gonna report on the news.
But anyway, Brian Dennehy. Let's give Brian Dennehy his due, man. Are you guys fans? Do you guys have a favorite role, Brian Dennehy?
Well, I mean, the one that everyone's showing is Tommy Boy, but so I'm gonna get away from that. Manhunter.
Manhunter. Yes.
Manhunter. Sorry, it's my Hall & Oates fandom. Manhunter. It's a great movie. It's understandably overlooked because of Silence of the Lambs. But it's a great movie. He's really good and different than what people remember. Much different from the Tommy Boy role, and a different type of movie. But that when I think of him, that's the movie that I think. And it was so long ago, like I don't know, 81, 82 or something, and he was already pretty old. So I'm thinking maybe that's why I thought he'd already passed away. But
he's one of those guys that like, and he hasn't been in anything in a while, I don't think. So he's just like, he's just one of those character actors kind of fella. Mine would be Silverado. That's Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah, the Western.
Yeah. Lawrence Kasdan wrote and directed that. He wrote, Empire Strikes Back and
Empire.
All a bunch of Indiana Jones and stuff. But it's kind of a schlocky 80s Western, but a lot of fun. And Brian Dennehy's got a pretty big role in it that I enjoyed. I've always enjoyed that movie.
Jeez, because you guys have really great movies. I just have Ratatouille.
That's a good one.
It's a really good one.
Ratatouille.
He's the dad. He's the dad of Patton Oswalt. And I really liked that movie. And I didn't correlate the name and the death, I guess. So I had to go look into it. I was like, oh yeah, Tommy Boy. And there's like my dad made me watch FX, and I was like, no, I don't really remember that much that well. So I was like, oh, Ratatouille, yeah, of course. And obviously Tommy Boy. But no, for sure, like Ratatouille is I think the one for me as he's giving advice to Remy, the little rat. That just sounds wrong. The little rat. It's just really cool. Like I don't know. Like it just those movies kind of hit pretty deep sometimes. Just to be yourself, and who fucking cares if you're a rat? You could fucking cook.
I know a shitload of rats.
Tell Tony Soprano that you don't care about being a rat and see what he tells you.
Oh man. So, Pat, let's start with you. What have you been watching, man?
I haven't had a chance to see much. Sopranos. I've been watching that, but I've actually been watching a lot of TV shows. I saw The Plot Against America is about to end. I saw the 5th episode, second to last episode. So the first 2 episodes kind of built up the world and was very politically charged. The second 2 episodes focused on the family and how they're dealing with everything. So it looks like the final 2 episodes, because in the 5th episode part 5, it kind of brought everything together, like how the politics and the family it's kind of all supercharged into one episode. It's just a great acting, and watching what's happening to the family is really cool. It's pretty scary actually, and not just for the obvious like anti-Semitism and what they're essentially putting up concentration camps in America, which is what happened in World War II, but it's a different America, and it's a different way that it's being done. And it's pretty scary because like the family, they're a family. They love each other and they care for each other. And despite the differences that they may have, in the end, they're still going to support each other. But you're generally worried about, not so much. Of course you're worried about the politics of what's going on, but you're worried about how they're going to feel about each other when everything ends. But it's really good. David Simon, HBO, hard to go wrong with that combination. Except for Treme. Treme sucks. But Plot Against America is really good. I saw the last 2 episodes of Cursed Films. Interesting. So it was Twilight Zone and The Crow. Both episodes are really surprising because the Twilight Zone one was actually nowhere near as good as I would thought. I would think it was basically I don't want to go so far as to call it a hit piece, but it was like 30 minutes just talking shit about John Landis, because a lot of people do blame him for what happened, including Steven Spielberg. So I mean,
Right,
it's
yeah.
nothing new, but a lot of it is conjecture. A lot of people like, well, I heard that this is what I heard Landis did this, and I heard that someone told him that type of thing, and I don't know. I expected a little bit more from the series because it's done a good job of kind of digging deeper into things, and
Hmm.
for it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's just very cut and dry and just. I'm kind of loath to use the term, but it's kind of boring. You know, nothing that you haven't heard before, and unless you really, really hate John Landis, I mean, that's the other one. The one on The Crow surprised me because all I knew about The Crow was Brandon Lee. They really get it like the the shooting of that movie was cursed from the day before it began. This one, like every other episode, was like kind of goes into why we believe this stuff and why horror movies are kind of tied into these urban legends. This was just straight up like, okay, this happened and then this happened. It's like the water cooler break room, hey, did you hear about kind of thing. And so it's pretty cool. It's a different type of and I did not expect it at all. Like I didn't know, 99% of what they talked about. So from like a chisme point of view, it's a really cool episode. But all 6 episodes, or all 5 episodes, excuse me, they're up now on Shudder, which is free right now. So, I mean, sign up, and I mean, if you're into that kind of hearing about, movies that have a curse on them, then it's a short docu-series. I mean, they're 30-minute episodes, super fun to watch. If you're a horror fan, it's like definitely worth your time, but check it out. So the one movie I saw, because I always watch, like, especially in these days, like you need something that's, upbeat and fun and kind of takes your mind away from what's going on. So I saw The Painted Bird. It's set in World War II, and it's about a boy who's been separated from his family, and he's trying to find his way back home. Sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, it seems like, there was always a joke where someone's like, oh, I had to go to the film festival, and my girlfriend made me watch this 3-hour foreign film that was in black and white, and like I had to read it, and I go to movies to watch, not read. Like that was the joke of sitcoms. So this movie's from the Czech Republic, and it's 3 hours, and it's Slavic. And man, I'll tell you, it's a really, really, really good movie. So it's set during World War II, and the boy who's he never speaks in the entire movie. He doesn't say anything, but he's either a Jewish or a gypsy, and that's just not the thing to be in World War II if you're looking.
True.
It's like the worst thing. So basically, he's his parents have sent him away to live with his aunt so he could be safe. His aunt passes away, so he's trying to find his way back home across Eastern Europe, and it's kind of his journey trying to get back and the people he encounters along the way. It's a lot about that journey, but the journey is and this is gonna sound all pretentious, but it's a spiritual one. Along the way, he meets people who have been affected by the war, but they're on the fringes, so they're not, the Nazis aren't storming through their villages, and they're not hiding from anybody, but they've been affected in different ways. They're exploiting people and this child in just horrible, horrible ways. I won't get too much into it, but I will say that at one film festival, it received a 10-minute standing ovation. At TIFF and in London and in Venice, people walked out during it because it was so violent and disgusting. And it's bad. It's a hard watch. What this little child goes through it's pretty graphic. It's very brutal, and the payoff is after everything he goes through, it has a satisfying payoff. Just an amazing payoff because you don't know the entire time. No one even deserved to be called by a name the entire movie. So eventually, he gets to where he gets. Only ending I can compare it to is Let the Right One In, which is to me has like the greatest ending ever for a movie. And this one has this incredibly satisfying ending where it makes the previous, almost 3 hours of brutality. It certainly doesn't make it worth it because you don't want anybody to have to go through what this person went through. But the payoff will satisfy anyone who manages to sit there and watch it. So, The Painted Bird, I mean, if you have the stomach to watch a little 9-year-old kid get exploited in the worst ways imaginable, and it's graphic, then, I mean, it's worth your time. I mean, great performances. It's bleak. It's very,
More
very,
uncomfortable
very...
than Nightingale or the Painted Bird?
Oh, that's so good. Well, the Nightingale, they're similar. They're
Okay,
very
that's all
similar.
I needed to hear.
Very similar. I'll leave it at that. But both excellent movies. The Painted Bird is based on a book from the '60s. Actually, the author said it was autobiographical. It came out that he wasn't entirely telling the truth, and some of the stories he had heard from Roman Polanski, who was a friend of
Oh.
his when he was a kid. So
Oh,
it's
it's
interesting.
about exploiting children, you say?
Yeah.
Go figure.
How to exploit children. So go, yeah, the irony there, right? But yeah, it's a really, really good movie. But you have to be in a certain mindset, and you have to be willing to sit there to watch a black and white movie that's subtitled for a few hours. But definitely, I mean, it's good. It's really good. It's it's a strange year and it's a young one, but it's up there with one of the best movies I've seen so far.
Wow.
Fuck.
All right, Danny. Danny, what do we got, buddy?
Well, so it was my birthday weekend.
It was.
And it was a very, very strange one indeed. This movie was supposed to come out in theater, so I think it's the first film during this pandemic that it came out. Unlike Invisible Man or Emma, Bloodshot, whatever. This movie was the first one to come out during it, and I think the marketing for this movie was still saying in theaters, and it's Trolls 2 or just Trolls World Tour, sequel to the original Trolls movie that came out fucking years ago. I really enjoyed this film, but I don't know if I enjoyed it because I saw it at home.
What's the title?
World Tour, Trolls World Tour.
Trolls 2.
Yeah, Trolls 2. And it has a lot of music, this movie. I'm not sure if you guys seen the first one, but essentially the trolls are musical trolls, and they based off the little toy from the 1980s and 90s.
Who had a teacher that collected that shit and while you were in school? I sure fucking did. I had like 3 of them.
I think I had one.
A teacher?
Yeah.
teacher.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely had teachers who collected those things.
And then
Really?
they would
Yes.
I had a teacher that would give them out for good behavior and stuff like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you could put
Did that teacher get in trouble? Because I remember some people said those things were satanic and stuff.
Everything in the fucking 90s was satanic, or in the 80s at least.
Especially Slayer.
D&D. But speaking of people that should be retired, Ozzy Osbourne's in this film. George Clinton is in this film. Mary J. Blige is in this film.
Dance
music. It's so fucking. It's like hearing their voices and obviously singing with Justin Timberlake and Anderson .Paak. It's this weird musical souffle of stuff. So good. It's
musical souffle.
Yeah, it's good. And I feel as I mentioned earlier, everything's so fucking depressing and just bad news everywhere. I feel like this movie hit the right spot. It's obviously a fucking kids movie and there is problems around it, but fuck, man, I just needed this fucking injection of good fucking pop music and just to feel good. And
so is there a musical competition in it, or is it just loaded? Is it like a musical? Is it just loaded with music?
It's a musical. So in the movie, rock wants to take over the world, and because everything else sucks. Honestly, that is the premise of the movie, and pop wants to save it. Little does she know that essentially pop destroyed the music beforehand by sampling other things.
Man.
yeah. And it's really funny. Sam Rockwell's in it, who's one of my favorite actors. It's just a lot of little things that go into country, classical. It's honestly just a little Mario game. Or
what about bluegrass?
No bluegrass, but you do hear a little bit of the bluegrass tinge in the country world.
I feel like anyone with bluegrass, they could have had that dude from Silverhawks come in. Remember him? The one who he piloted their ship, and he was a hawk named Bluegrass. He had a guitar that shot musical laser beams.
Damn, just like Prince.
Just like Prince. That's where Prince got the idea from with Silverhawks.
Yeah.
Prince's guitar shot other stuff too. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Prince. You purple prince. Uh, sorry. Yeah, it was a thing that I think I needed at the time. As I mentioned, it does have its problems, but I think the brightness and the trippiness of this whole film is, I think, what I needed. And then I think because we're going to be doing, like, we're trying to do trippy things, I was trying to try to get stuff that might have been trippy, but I ended up watching more surrealistic things. So I watched Dollface with Kat Jennings, Brenda Song, and Macaulay Culkin, and it's a TV show on Hulu. It's already been out for a couple of months, I guess. But me and my girlfriend started watching it. And this is a girl that ended up a 5-year relationship, and I was just trying to be on her own, I guess. And she's trying to rekindle a lot of friendships, stuff that she kind of burned bridges on. It's a really cool show. I like it. I feel like usually when you see this kind of shows, it's the guy that's trying to go back into the real world, after the girl leaves him because he's shitty or whatever, and he needs to reconnect with his friends and being a man. In this show, she's trying to reconnect to be, a feminist woman, just a strong, independent woman that doesn't need no man, and trying to recoup her friends at the same time. And it's really it's fun trying to see the workings of a woman, right? It's
you're finally starting to get it, huh, Danny?
Yeah, I this is the show that I was I get it now. But it's really good. I'm liking it. I think this is been the best thing I've seen all week. And I would recommend it. I mean, especially it's 10 episodes, so it's just very bingeable.
Please tell me Macaulay Culkin plays the girl.
Oh no, he plays an older doctor.
Totally lost me there.
Does he wear rabbit ears?
No, he doesn't. Yeah. Isn't that thing he does?
That avant-garde bullshit that he does? I hate that shit.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he's
I
not
saw him
doing
at a
that.
wrestling convention, and he was just walking around wearing bunny ears and arm wrestling people.
Oh, Daddy. So I've heard of Finding Nemo. What the fuck is Little Nemo?
All right, so Little Nemo was a comic from the early 1900s, and it got made into a movie in the late 80s. And this has the craziest development hell story ever. It goes through Mobius, who's a famous artist, Bradbury, or
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, Ray Bradbury. I had that back. Brad Bird, Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli. It just goes through all these fucking hands: George Lucas, Chuck Jones, and nobody just wants to work on this. Essentially, it's just this fucking crazy animated story. And I was like, well, Mobius worked on it. There has to be some sort of trippiness. If you've seen its art, and if it has Miyazaki, so it has to have some sort of whimsical stuff into it. It's a cult film from the 1980s. The animation is really fucking good. I just feel like this animated film didn't really hit all the sweet spots it should. It's pretty. The animation is fucking great, but it really doesn't go anywhere. I did lose myself trying to watch this film, and I was more interested in what was happening in its past than in the actual movie.
Adventures in Slumberland? Is that the?
Yeah, that's the movie. Yeah.
Oh shit! I thought that was the Bill Cosby documentary.
Misadventures in Slumberland. That's the name of my sex tape.
You know what? It looks interesting. It's very old school. Oh, very racist it looks like in this.
The animated film, they try to tone it down so it doesn't really look as racist as it does in the cartoon. So yeah, there's a character named Mr. Flip, or I just think Flip, who's played by Mickey Rooney. And in the comic book, it's more just not tasteful stuff.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, so
and why didn't this get made?
Well, there was the animator, actually. He started a whole animation company, and he was such a fan of the comic that he went to the Descendants to ask for the permission for the film. And wow. As I mentioned, George Lucas didn't really want to do anything with it. Chuck Jones just turned it down. And somewhere in the 80s, they were like, yeah, we'll do it. But they're getting all these rewrites. Like even Chris Columbus, who like fucking directed like Harry Potter and fucking Home Alone, fucking weird enough. They wrote the screenplays, but it wasn't working. Something just didn't work right for them, so they'll just drop out. And I think if anything, I'd rather see a documentary on Little Nemo than experiencing Little Nemo again. It's just because the little kid, I see the imagination and I see everything. It's just it didn't click, and I think the story was just kind of like one note in a way. In most like animated films, like children's movies, the character has some sort of fucking progression. Like he learns a fucking lesson at the end, and this he doesn't really. And I don't know if that's because it was because of the comic books of the time, or they just try to make it work for the audience of the 1980s. Because I think it came out in Japan in 1988, and I think the United States in 1992. So even then, it has like this weird there's something that's not right.
Right on. Well, you guys had interesting stuff to talk about. I really don't. So the thing I'll start with here is I saw this on I'm presuming Amazon Prime. It's called High Moon. Okay, so this is based off a webcomic that is by David Gallagher, I guess. And so what this is, here's the premise, and this is why I was kind of like all about it at first, just by the idea. It's a Western werewolf movie. All right.
Okay.
That's right up my alley. I like Westerns, like werewolves. This sounds great to me. It was not great. It was not great at all. It was, let's see. I'm trying to find who it's got one of the guys from Boondock Saints in it. Not Norman Reedus. And so the whole setup is the best I can say is it's shot with the budget of like a sci-fi original picture. And I almost can say that it was slated to be one of those, and then I don't know, maybe stuff changed and it got released onto like straight to video format or whatnot. But a guy, it starts out in the Old West with like a gang of wrestlers and werewolf outlaws, and they have this showdown with this like gunslinger guy, and then all of a sudden you're fast forwarded to like modern day times, and this guy's crawling out of a grave, but he's fine. And the werewolves are back, and now they're not on horses; they're on motorcycles.
Wow. Okay.
And it's awful. Intertwined in this is a infidelity story that is shot with the tact and written with the tact of like something you'd see on like Nickelodeon or so. It's just it's super bad. I had a really hard time. I barely paid attention to it. I was like on my phone, but I was like, I'm gonna stomach it and I'm gonna finish it. And I would not recommend it. I don't think I paid it for it. I think this was just a Prime rental thing. But yeah, High Moon. I have no.
I see. I'm looking at the cover for it. It's a guy like a cowboy holding. It's a werewolf cowboy actually. Yeah. Holding an axe, and there's like ashes.
Yeah. Yeah. The werewolves use a lot of weapons. And they're kind of just werewolves by like they kind of just they're just in makeup. They don't really do werewolf shit.
So is that like what's his fucking name? Like Angel from Buffy? Like it's just like they kind of like give him a snout. Even though I know Angel wasn't.
No, they're more stupid than that. They're definitely like it's real bad. I'm gonna have to find a picture for you guys and send it. But yeah, the makeup, real weird choices in makeup, and like there's this one scene where the guy who came, like the gunslinger who's there to stop him, I guess, they're like, oh well, he's like, I need a horse, and the one that's like this girl who's like falling in love with him is like, oh, I ain't got a horse, but I got this Hemi Barracuda you can drive. And so she takes him out and she's like, she teaches him how to drive on a muscle car, and he just burns rubber for like 30 seconds. Is like, I got this. I know how to drive now. It's hilarious. But yeah, that's I think that's all that needs to be said about High Moon. Then I checked out and I actually wanted to go see this in the theater while there were theaters. It's called Underwater, and it debuted in theaters, I think, in January. Kristen Stewart, the guy who directed, his name is William Eubank, and I read an interesting article interview with him recently. I forget where, but he was kind of saying like how in the process of developing the film and getting people to sign up to it and sign on board, he really wanted to do something pretty far out. As far as concept, but he kind of had to just sell it as like, hey, look, it's an underwater mining rig. Problems arise. There may or may not be a monster or monsters, and that's kind of how he pitched it. When in all the while, he kind of wanted to make this kind of Lovecraftian, like kind of Elder God movie, and he got it done. And they definitely try to lean into being like underwater Alien. I would say Kristen Stewart's totally supposed to be. She's like in a bra and panty. If she's not in like a high pressurized underwater suit, she's in her bra and panties, running around doing Ripley shit, trying to be Ripley. And but she does a pretty good job with her little Ripley impersonation. And the monsters are cool. I don't want to spoil the end. The end's actually really, really cool. But again, it's kind of boilerplate.
So I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Is it fucking worth it?
Yeah, for sure. Like if it's a rental, $3.99, whatever, 100% rent it. It's an hour and a half, so you're not going to be wasting a bunch of your time even if you don't like it. And even if, like, I would say it's one of those movies that you're like, if you're kind of eye rolling at it the whole time, it's at least still entertaining. I thought it was very much written like a video game. Like bad stuff happens, you got to crawl through corridors, tight spaces. Oh no, there's other people. Oh shit, bad things start happening to each one of them. It's definitely kind of a cut and dry horror movie in a lot of ways, but it does some cool things. And the end I thought was pretty great. So I don't know if you guys heard anything about it at all.
I remember wanting to see it.
Yeah, me too. I remember wanting to see it. I've heard good things about it though.
I would definitely check it out. It's not one of those big cast, but Kristen Stewart, Vincent Castle, depending. TJ Miller's in it. In a really weird role, actually. His character is really strange.
I wanted to not see it because of him, but everything else, I was like, if he gets killed, I'm fucking 110% for it.
He definitely gets killed.
Awesome.
How and when did the TJ Miller thing turn? He was super popular, and now he's not?
I think it just got over. Not like we just got too much TJ Miller.
I feel like
he said something, or he was maybe he was Me Too'd or something. I don't remember, but also on Silicon Valley they said he was kind of an asshole. Mm-hmm. I don't. You know what? Like, I don't remember it. Like, well, we don't remember it, so maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. But I thought he was funny on Silicon Valley, and he was pretty funny in Ready Player One. That's like anything.
Oh yeah. He was
anything I've ever seen him in. He makes me laugh in anything I've ever seen him in. So when I saw he was, I honestly I could care either. Like I have no opinion of him.
He was fine. Yeah. The one thing I'll say about this is that there's an actor in it who I really, really like. I've liked him in virtually everything he's ever been in. John Gallagher Jr. He's kind of like one of our darling babies. Totally underutilized. Literally, he like gets conked out and like is asleep like for like most of the movie. But he's there, but they're just, all right, John, just be asleep, all right? So
here's a paycheck.
Yeah, here's a paycheck. He must be friends with the director or something. But yeah, that's what I checked out. And so continuing on, 420 month, we're gonna talk about some trippy movies here. So that does not necessarily mean trippy on drugs. Hey, these are just movies that are a trip. That maybe if you were flamed out on a fat blunt, you might go, what? Huh? So
they're enjoyable. They're enjoyable all year, but they're especially enjoyable for 20 months.
Exactly. So let's start with one of you guys. I guess Danny. Let's start with you.
Cool.
What's your trippiest non-drug movie? Let's start with that. Trippiest non-drug movie.
Okay, because I wrote down 3 movies, and
let's start like.
Okay, so. I actually had my girlfriend. So we watched Little Nemo, and then I had my girlfriend watch Akira, and yeah. So I think this is like the trippiest movie, like non-drug even. and I feel like even if you're like on a nice like little high on LSD or whatever, this would fucking scare the shit out of you. But I feel like it is a good definition of just being on a drug. Like, so if you're sober, this is just gonna bring you in. You're asking questions almost immediately, and trying to figure out what is and who is Akira. So I feel like this is a perfect definition, especially if you already know. If you already know, and you're it's 420 whatever, or you're just out there enjoying some of the cool devil's grass out there. Lettuce. Sorry, I'm not cool. I don't do drugs.
No, I don't know. I don't think people call it lettuce.
I think it's the devil's dandruff, and that's cocaine.
It's a great movie, man. That's one of my favorite movies ever.
It's fucking great. It's a really fucking great animated film, and all the shit that's happening right now is like almost word for word happening.
You're right. One of us is going to swell to the size of a city and explode. You're right.
Yeah.
I agree. Pat, what about you, buddy?
Non-drug movie. So the one that I thought of immediately, it's a trilogy, but they're not connected story-wise. But the Imagination trilogy by Terry Gilliam. It's Time Bandits, Brazil, and then Baron Munchausen. Brazil especially is an incredibly trippy movie. Gilliam himself he does so many creative things with the camera and with lighting and special effects and storytelling. But Brazil is in this dystopian future where a man is trying to kind of separate himself from it's kind of like 1984, the setting of it. Unlike Time Bandits and Baron Munchausen, has an incredibly depressing ending where essentially you're a part of the system no matter what. But just watching them, they really are like, you're just kind of like, okay, like what's going on here? How is this going on? Baron Munchausen, you don't know what's truth and what's a lie. And in the end, it kind of gives you a knowing wink as to, none of this really happened. But then, there's a giant bomb being wheeled into a city. And then Time Bandits, it's Work Done. What's his name?
Fucking Willow.
Willow, yeah.
Well, he's still Wicket.
Warwick Davis.
It's still Wicket.
Warwick Davis. Him and his buddies traveling through time, robbing famous people of their artifacts and stuff. And it's a wild ride. All three movies. And then if you watch them all interconnected, it's a story of the imagination of youth, the imagination of a middle-aged person trying to kind of, live their life how they want to live it, and then the imagination of an old person wishing they were they were young again. And then just the special effects kind of thread. The storytelling is out there. It's really wild. They're kind of fantastic. They're not kind of fantastic. They're very fantastic stories, but not drug related at all. But yeah, they're a trip. They definitely are a trip.
Definitely, and it's funny you brought up Terry Gilliam because actually none of my movies on my little list here on my phone, none of them are drug movies really. But my first one that I put down here because I just from like one of my earliest memories of watching movies, just being like, what the fuck am I watching? Is Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. So Monty Python kind of just the show in general was kind of guided heavily by Terry Gilliam, I'm sure. Was a trip. Monty Python was strange and out there and bizarre. And The Meaning of Life is just, if you haven't seen it, how do you describe it? It's a series of vignettes, a series of scenes of skits, you would say, that are kind of just interwoven together by music, and but it's literally from life, from birth to death, and everything in between, and just a really weird take on it. And I've always kind of appreciated the British sensibility about being weird. Doctor Who, for sure, I think falls onto some of this. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think, is another thing that I would go like, wow, that's a fucking trip. You know what I mean? And not really drug related at all, but I really have always kind of been fascinated with like the English sensibility about it. It's always been like attractive to me. I've always kind of liked it. Back in the day, they had a PC game called Monty Python's A Complete Waste of Time And it was just literally you'd open the thing and like you could just start clicking around and it was exactly what it said it was, a complete waste of fucking time. But it was weird, and like you would do one thing and a big giant foot would come down and smash stuff and be a man with 3 buttocks, and you name it, it was weird. So out of all this stuff, I mean, I have a bunch that I consider my favorites, I guess. These are all kind of my favorites, but what about y'all? What do you have a favorite?
Of Monty Python? Or, well,
No, of any
along
kind of trippy movie, yeah, any.
Oh, going along the lines really quickly of like sketch comedy and different types of humor. Kids in the Hall also is kind of it's a different dry sense of humor. It
Very
gets
British,
compared a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It gets compared a lot to Saturday Night Live, but Saturday Night Live is very much, here's the setup, here's the rising, and here's the punchline, and that's it. And then they have their characters or whatever. Whereas Kids in the Hall, sometimes there's not even a punchline at the end. It's just kind of like something happens, and then you're supposed. Yeah, and then it's supposed to be funny, and somehow it ends up being funny. But
one of my favorite things about Kids in the Hall, just real quick, and Monty Python both, is they like refuse to actually put women in their skits. They just always played the women, which always made them like more funny to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's really funny. One of the movies and this isn't one of my favorite, and actually I had forgotten about it, so the timing of it is really good, but it's been on a lot on one of the streaming channels that we have. Hot Rod with Andy Samberg.
Fucking love that movie.
It's so funny, but then when you're watching it, like the whole Cool Beans part, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Just them going cool beans, cool beans, cool beans, cool. But the movie's it's really funny. It's you know what? It's almost ahead of its time, to be honest with you. It really has very little to do with drugs. Bill Hader's in it, and he kind of has some issues, but it has very little to do with drugs. But it's a trippy movie because the humor for its time, that's another one of those. It's not English or British, but it's very the jokes aren't as obvious. Some of them are just kind of. Visual. It's almost like random. It's like the birth of the random jokes almost. I mean, I know places did it before that, but it's I don't know. Watching the movie, you're kind of like. It's funny. It's laugh out loud funny, but you're kind of like, I don't know if that's supposed to be funny. It's like it ends with him beating up his dad, and his dad like throws the ninja star at him. It's just like it's kind of stupid, but I don't know. It's one of those movies where, and I'm sure if you are on something, it's like the funniest thing ever written. It's comedic genius.
That's also a great use of Ian McShane. Like I've never seen him really be that funny.
Looking back, what are you realizing was real trippy?
Well, I think I have. Well, I don't think I know I have Paranoia Agent. I was trying to think of other things maybe that my dad forced me to watch when I was growing up, but I feel like Paranoia Agent is a show that really didn't get really talked about, because I feel like
no idea what it is.
It's an anime.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's an anime.
Okay.
I mean, nerd boy talking about anime, blah 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 blah. Again, here we go.
I'm gonna fuck
you up. So yeah, this the whole premise is that there is this kid called the Little Slugger assaulting these people, and there's little trippy things.
He's on a skateboard, right?
Rollerblades, actually. And he has a golden bat, and he's knocking the shit out of people. There's a computer girl that's cool. Imagining her little stuffed animal talking to her. It is
Is there a body pillow character?
No. But there's
there are body pillows, but that's at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird shit that happens in it. Even the intro to this to the anime is very surreal and trippy itself. It's just natural high, and you don't
lots of
know.
Anime is trippy. I didn't realize. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. It's so hard to kind of pin it down to find these things. But I think when we're talking about light it up, boys, type of thing. I feel like Paranoia Agent. It's Pineapple Express. You're fucking getting lit, and you're trying to solve a mystery, and it's like seeing fucking James Franco and Seth Rogen trying to figure out this murder. You're bake the fuck out of your mind, and this I feel like Paranoia Agent is just that, and just fucking Chef's Kiss is so fucking good. I fucking if you could find it anywhere, I recommend it. I know Pat, you've seen this, but I don't know.
Good. And Blake was talking about like how a lot of anime is trippy. Satoshi Kon, who directed this, his work is especially out there because you have Paranoia Agent, Paprika, Millennium Actress. Most famously is Perfect Blue. When Millennium Actress is your most normal movie, then you know that your resume is fucked up. But yeah, Danny's absolutely right about Paranoia Agent. It's and you know what? You get caught. For me, I'm speaking for me. I got so caught up in the animation and story that I didn't even think about how, crazy it is when you really, really think about it.
yeah. I saw like I bought the DVDs, like a bootleg DVD for this, at a comic book store in Phoenix, and I watched it like back and forth, and at the end of it, I was like, yeah, this shit's fucking crazy, and this is fucking great. But Blake,
What about you, Blake?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you guys kind of got my mind going on a certain direction now. And I would have to say, well, and I just watched a movie too. I was just thinking about Equilibrium. Have you ever seen Equilibrium?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Christian Bale and it's got Sean Bean.
Christian Bale, yes.
Yeah. It's a fucking. It's basically Fahrenheit, 451 meets The Matrix, and so that made me think The Matrix is a fucking super fucking trippy movie. That looking back on is like, what the fuck? Oh, okay, it's all on the computers with green screens. Cool, that kind of deal. But yeah,
that's true. And when
you know what I mean,
watch it, you don't really think about it.
It's just like, oh wow, it's just an action movie, but it's like, oh shit, no, it's a trip.
I feel like that you just talked like my dad, and he's like, that's a movie. There's green screen. Yeah, it's action.
There's a guy who betrays.
I mentioned it briefly today, and I kind of talked about it last week about how I didn't realize how layered The Sopranos is because I've been rewatching it from the beginning, and there's all the the psychological aspects to it, but the show in and of itself, it's really trippy because there's episodes where they start in dream sequences. You don't know it's a dream sequence until obviously it is because something kind of happens that it's a dream. Like there's one that starts off in a butcher shop and you're like, oh, that's crazy. I didn't know he worked there. And he's having a conversation with someone who's bloody and you're like, well, they're mobsters, so he's going to be bloody. They're having this weird conversation and you're like, oh, this is so weird. I haven't seen that character in a while. And then as he's getting some meat from the refrigerator, like a bloody hand will hand him the meat and he's like, oh, thank you, talking to this hand. Oh, it just kind of comes out of nowhere with these. There's sequences in fun houses, and there's a whole episode built around Tony Soprano having like this sexual crush on his next door neighbor. He's talking to people about it. He has an argument with his wife about it. The big twist at the end is that person isn't even there, and no one remembers any of the conversations that he's talking about. Now, it all plays into the psychological aspect of the story. But as you're watching it, like it's supposed to be just another mob story, so it kind of trips you out that there's all this weird supernatural bullshit going on in the background. But that one, until like when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, this is a really cool show. Watching it now, I'm like, wow, this show's really messed up.
That's interesting, man. I've kind of forgotten all about that, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Well, and as Pat is talking, I try to figure out Pat or Nate now. I feel like I'm everywhere. Pat Nate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Pat. That's what I hate myself. But it's like this, like as you explain this thing, I feel like it's like, and we talked about it with like Twin Peaks type of thing. That sounds like a very like David Lynch thing, like the exploring of like suburbia type of thing. Like, do you think like Sopranos is exploring that itself, or is it more of like a thing of it on its own?
Well, it's it's funny you mentioned David Lynch because that's like an obvious one when it comes to trippy movies. I didn't even think of any of those movies. But yeah, that's a good. But I don't know if it's so much an exploration of suburbia. Well, it's not of my suburbia because they live in that's a tax bracket that I'll never ever get to.
Well, you get the Trump books.
Yeah, I need a lot of Trump books to get there. But it's it's more of an exploration of that culture, like the Italian culture, Italian American culture, what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman, because it kind of flips the genre entirely on its head. Like traditionally, before The Sopranos, mob bosses, mob men were supposed to be totally in control, and when they were mad, they would kill someone, and that was that. In The Sopranos, it's on its head to where if he gets mad, his wife or his mom or his daughter or his psychiatrist or some woman will shout him down and put him in his place, and it's really weird to see that, and not because I'm a misogynist. I may well be. You don't expect that from your mob stories, and it's really cool. It's a different take on it. What about you? Like, do you have anything that you look back on and you're like, man, that's a lot trippier than I thought it was?
There's like you that's like you had like a really good one, deep dive. And like while you're talking, I was kind of thinking back to like I guess I keep going back to sci-fi stuff, kind of like in my head. And Babylon 5. Do you remember Babylon 5, the TV series?
The TV show, yeah.
Yeah. So that was I mean, it was a pretty interesting and trippy series. They introduced these like these aliens that were like that show was cool because they like the aliens were not like normal, just like human dressed up in blue makeup kind of aliens. Like they went out
Muppets, right?
They did lots. Yeah, they was that Jim Henson stuff?
I think that was Jim Henson.
I assume.
Yeah.
Anytime there's Muppets, anytime there's good Muppets, it's Henson. I would imagine.
You know what? They had incredible stuff. Yeah, and so yeah, I don't know. I keep going back to this stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff I'm thinking about it is like obviously tripped out. And I guess that kind of falls into this like kind of overlooked category that we have listed here. But like, have you ever seen, like, I've brought it up before, but like the movie, it's compared to Primer a lot. But have you ever seen Coherence?
Is that the one with Ethan Hawke?
Is Ethan Hawke in that? No, I don't think so.
Coherence. I feel like I have seen it.
So it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like The Invitation too. That movie, The Invitation, where it's kind of like these people are set up in this house, and then like this incredibly confusing series of events starts to unfold, and it kind of unfolds into like a lot like Primer. Like Primer gets going and it's like, okay, these guys are building this time machine, and then once you kind of realize that they've actually used it, things get a whole lot stranger. And that's kind of how Coherence is. I would definitely 100% recommend it to people who are into this, like, just but out there, like a real out there kind of thought. I guess that's kind of what I mean. What I keep thinking about, like trippy, is like the stuff that I think is like, that's not just so much like, oh my god, that's like it's like a stoner vision. It's more like whoa, that's like a real interesting like thing. Like if you're stoned, you'd never be able to wrap your head around it.
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
Like the natural high.
Along those,
right.
Yeah, well, along those lines, I talked about this at the beginning of the year, and back when we were able to visit other states and have hobbies and stuff.
A long ago.
A long time ago, at Sundance, I saw the world premiere of Horse Girl, which debuted on Netflix in end of January, I believe, and I still think that that's the best movie that I've seen this year. I thought it was amazing. And the story, it's one of those, the whole stereotypical genre-defying type of thing. Like, you have no idea what it is. Like, it's based on the Horse Girl meme. It deals with identity of self and self-loathing and self-respect and aliens and possession. And its self-worth is in there, and it's all over the place with it when it's all said and done. And the performances are great, like Alison Brie's in there and Molly Shannon and Paul Rudd. Not Paul Rudd. What's his name from Mad About You? Paul Reiser.
Paul Reiser.
Yeah, Paul Reiser has a cameo in there. And at the end of the movie, it's super entertaining, and it's over, and you're like, I have no idea what I just saw. I don't know what this story was about. But in a good way. It's really good. But I have heard nobody talk about it at all, and I really thought that it would catch on. But if you're gonna watch an animal thing on Netflix, you got to go with Tiger King. Apparently, I mean that's the way the winds blow. And
Horse Girl or Tiger King, right? I mean, that is...
Well, which one's gonna get you feel terrible about yourself, or You know, like you hate it. You're in quarantine for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. I don't even know anymore.
You're on your
And you're
sixth bologna sandwich of the day.
Yeah, like you have crumbs on your you have grease on your muscle shirt.
Every Saturday you can find us here. The rest of the week you can go to adventuresinpoortaste.com where you can find all our podcasts. We have Talking Tauntauns of Poor Taste Wrestling and our General Comics podcast. You could also catch up with the reviews and articles that are on the site. Danny and Blake were just talking about quarantines and what you do and bologna sandwiches. I'm actually just living my life. I'm not on quarantine. I'm not on lockdown. Nothing. I'm just wandering. I went to the park this weekend. I wrote an article, just a list of movies that I would watch if I was under quarantine. We also go to YouTube. Adventures in Movies is now on YouTube. You could check us out there. You can't see us, but you can enjoy the delicious audio that we do. But if you do want to see us, check out the new series that we have. It's Adventures in Movies Presents ... where we review movies. Very first episode we reviewed Butt Boy, and this week we're going to review The Exorcist Part 3. Give us a listen.
And while you're at it, one of the things that I did, what happened actually just yesterday, there was a food bank going on, and if you guys haven't donated to your local food bank, do that because it helps a fuckload of people. And while you're on the website or on the internet, this thing called the internet or this thing called life, you can follow us in Adventures in Movies on Twitter over at AAPT, or you can follow us individually. You can find Nathaniel or Pat, as I like to call him. I'm sorry for calling you that other word that I'll never say ever again. On Instagram at Nathan Poor Taste. Or you can find me, Danny, on Twitter and Instagram at default_player. And you can find the crashing bombastic Blake on Twitter at Four-Eyed Horror.
Sure, I like that one. That's a good one. So next week, I just wrote down weed. We're just gonna do a bunch of weed movies. So like real true blue stoner movies. So check it out. I know I will.
And grab that stash. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on the website. We're there. You can now find us on YouTube. You might be able to find us on Stitcher. Don't know. Don't care. But just make sure to give us a rating. Tell a friend to listen. Check us out on YouTube. And that's our cue. We'll talk to you next week.
Dude.
Adios.